Today is Sunday, October 23rd, and I am podcasting from Fort Collins, Colorado. My name is Sara, and I am the host of this podcast called The Knitting Type. If you would like to get in touch with me or know where else I am on social media, I have a Ravelry page under The Knitting Type. I have a podcast group called The Knitting Type Podcast, and I'm on Blogger and Gmail and Instagram as The Knitting Type. Today, we've got some fun things in store. I'm going to look at my notes over here. We have a giveaway announcement that I talked about in my last podcast for the Riley Rose Shawl by Jennifer Lassonde of the Downseller Studio podcast. So I'm going to be announcing that at the end of the podcast. And then we have some FOs. We have, some FOs. We have a hoe, and we have a whip. And then just some announcements. So hopefully it's going to be a pretty short podcast, probably just half an hour. So thank you for joining me, and let's get started. So just some general housekeeping. I had a giveaway last week, and that was to leave me a comment in the Knitting Type podcast group under the discussion thread of what would you like to know. So I got a couple comments in there, and before this show started, I went ahead and looked at all the comments and did a random number generator, and then I took a picture of the random number generator with my phone so that you can see what question was asked. And then also we're going to have a CAL going on, a knit along on this podcast starting November 1st for the Gilmore girls revival that is happening November 25th. And so I'm going to host a knit along from November 1st to November 30th. And there will be prizes every week via Instagram and this podcast. And I'm going to be showing one of those prizes at the end of this podcast as well. So stay tuned. And then I'm also going to be hosting with Shannon of Sockcetra a project bag swap 2.0. And so I will circle reference that back at the end of this podcast as well. So let's get on with it. This is going to move on so fast. So I had someone leave a comment in the discussion thread of what would you like to know, asking me to show some more of my crocheting because I had referenced it some in the past, and very few giveaways, they said, are for crocheted patterns. And you see a lot of knitting podcasts, but not a lot of crochet specific podcasts. So this past week on Instagram, I did post a picture of some crocheted ear warmers that I produced this time last year. So I brought those as my FOs to show you today. So they have tags on them because I sold them last year. So you can see right here, they have a little tag. And this is the ear warmer. It is crocheted using an H hook, which I wrote down is a 5mm hook. And I used Vanna White's acrylic yarn by Lion brand. So just a Joanne Fabrics line of yarn. I think Michael sells it too. And you can see back here, it's kind of wider than it is, like you can see right up here. It's thicker. And I think that's clearly because of the way that I joined it at the back. So if anybody knows how I could have avoided that in the future, I wonder if I figured it out on another one. But either way, when it's on your head, that part's down at the bottom and you can't really tell. So the reason that I did these colors is because I live in Colorado, and Colorado is very proud of its flag. And I've never lived in a state where more state residents wore their flag all over the place. They were on t-shirts and hats and pants and everything, ear warmers. So last year I thought I would crochet a couple of these and make them in various colors. So I had them, these are Broncos colors. This is actually blue and orange and white. And that's because people here also love the Broncos, which is a football team. I don't know that much about sports, but I do know that the Broncos are our local football team. Yay! So anyway, this is it up close. I believe this was a year ago, but I believe this is half double crochet for a majority of the rounds, and then this C I made separate, and then I'll show you the inside, my handiwork, and then I just stitched the C on there. And then I sold these at my old work had like a Santa's workshop, like a craft shop, and you could sell your handmade goods. So I made a lot of these. I would say probably 10, and like 7 of them sold. So here's another one in the orange Broncos colors. And again, you can see here at the back that I did something different with the join. I think I just stitched it, so not clean. And that's typically my issue with crocheting in the round, is that my joins are just never, they're never attractive. And then again, I just made the C separate and I stitched it on. So I don't know, I might put these up in my Etsy shop this year just to see if I can sell them. I have 2 Broncos. I don't have any of the state ones anymore, I don't think. But then after I made those 2 with the 5mm hook on kind of a sport DK weight, I decided, ooh, what about like a chunky warm one? So I made these ginormous bulky yarn ones. I could not tell you the size hook I used. I think it was a 9. And I forget this yarn, but it's bulky, and it was from Joann Fabrics. And it turns out this is so huge. Hello. Yeah, and then I couldn't figure out how to get the C to look correctly, and so I just ended up keeping this at home. And then I made a chunky Broncos one, again, half double crochet, and I thought instead of putting the C on it, I'm going to make a ginormous chunky flower and put that on there. But here's the thing, the flower's really heavy. So when you wear it, it just kind of sags on your head, and it feels considerably heavy and dense compared to the rest of the headband. So maybe if you were wearing it with the flower on top of your head, which looks pretty silly, you might not feel the weight, but if it was over to the side, it would just kind of hang off your head and probably not look attractive. So this was just some experimenting that I did last year, and I had a lot of fun with it. And so these are my crocheted FOs for this podcast. I did not get many other finished objects done this weekend. I have to be honest, I had a really busy work week, and then I recently got into planning, like being a planner girl. I think Jillian of the Knitting Broomsticks podcast has talked about her obsession with planning before, and I didn't really understand it until for my birthday. I had some birthday money and I decided to buy myself a new planner to try to organize my work, knitting, and personal life. And I bought an Erin Condren planner, which is a spiral bound planner that you can buy off the Erin Condren website or Staples. And then I went on Etsy and I started looking at all of these sticker kits that you can buy for your planners, that your planner's kind of like a not a scrapbook. Are they called scrapbooks? Like memory books, where you plan out your week with sticker designs. And I've always been a planner person. Like I've always had a physical planner. And for some reason, I got way into it. And so I bought these sticker kits, and then I started planning every night. And so I've kind of been doing that. But I have gotten some knitting done. And so I have a hoe. I have a half finished object because I did get this done before my planner came in and I started playing with my planner all week. So I'm going to take a sip of my tea first. I have my llama mug. Llamas. Llamas or alpacas. Somebody tell me the difference, really. I mean, maybe they're alpacas, right? Maybe they're llamas. Maybe they're both. Maybe it's a llama and alpaca on the mug, and they look identical. So this is my hoe. Oh, hey. This is my Sous Ale sock. The pattern is by Lydia Brown, or Lydia B, as she is known on Instagram. And she's the owner of the O Loops Yarn Company. And this was the pattern for her Harry Potter knit along for the month of October. And so it is knit out of O Loops yarn in the Loyal Companion colorway. That's this speckled color on her Perfection Knot yarn base. And then the heel toe cuff is out of Dream Yarn's Everlasting Sock Base in the Brownie colorway. And I knit this on size 1 needles. I cast on 64. And although the pattern is a toe up pattern, I think I read it right. And I knit instead from the cuff down because that's the only way I know how to knit socks at this point. And I thought, I want to cast the sock on and I don't want to learn how to knit toe up right now. So I just reversed the pattern. And the pattern is for shorty socks. So I think in her pattern, she has, sorry, I'll keep it this way. She has one pattern repeat and then you go right into, well, it's toe up. So she has one pattern repeat after the heel and then you do the cuff. But I did 2 pattern repeats before I dropped down for the cuff. And then I did Eye of Partridge heel, and I did the heel flap, which her pattern I think is not a heel flap. It looks like a fish lips kiss heel, kind of more like a rounded heel. And I think that's it. So I'm hoping to cast on for the partner of this sock tonight, because I'm supposed to have these done for the Harry Potter October knit along by Halloween. So the O Loops Harry Potter knit along is 3 months and it's October, November, December, and she just released what November's knit along pattern is supposed to be, and it's supposed to be 2 colorways or 2 colors kind of like alternating, so like stripes or something like that. And yeah, so hey, oh, one sock done. Do 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 do. Look, it's moonwalking off the screen. And that is my only hoe for this week, but I do have a whip. And that is the same shawl that I showed last week. So I did make some progress on this. I took it on I had 2 days of training down in Denver, and so I took this with me and stayed the night at a friend's house and worked on it while I was there, and I just poked a big hole in it with my knitting needles. So just kind of, you ever do that? You just kind of work the stitch back in to, oh, you can really see it. Okay, well, try not to obsess. So I put my stitch marker of the spinning wheel where I last left off. So you can see I knit about 10 rows, just like this. So I'm starting the 7th repeat, and then I just have 1 more brown stripe and 1 more chunk before this shawl is complete. And this shawl is called the Because I Love You by Amy Meeks. And Amy Meeks is a designer, and she's the sister of Debbie Reese, and together they have the Periscoping Sisters podcast. And this is knit out of Havirland's yarn in her Wooland Colorway, and again, I'm using that same Dream Everlasting Socks in the Brownie Colorway as the alternating, and I just loved this so much because of how fallish it looked. This is a lot more green than it's coming up. It just shows up a lot more green in real life. So, is that all my knitting? Really? Goodness, this podcast will be so quick. I need to slow it down, right? I don't have anything else to talk about, except for that we do have Bernadette back here wearing her lovely, ooh, what is that cardigan called? It was really popular. I mentioned it in my first podcast. Central Park hoodie. It's the Central Park hoodie cabled sweater with toggle buttons. And she was very jealous of my hitchhiker shawl that I was wearing last week. So I told her that she could wear it. I said, sure, why not, Bernadette? Looks better on you anyway. So I threw that up on her. I guess I'll move on to some acquisitions that I received in the mail. Oh, last month. I don't know. 2 months, 3. What month are we in? October. So I received this August and September, I believe. Again, it's O-Loops yarn because I belonged to their minis club for one session, which is 3 months long, and then I belonged to their single skein. It's called Box of Socks, I believe, or that's the one I signed up for. It's a skein of yarn every month for 3 months. And so I signed up for both the minis and the skein. So first I'll show you the minis, and they are in plastic. And these are them. And I couldn't tell you what month these showed up, but ooh, shiny, shiny. But they're beautiful, and I believe their colorways are, okay, so this is Vlad Vlakanov. This second one is Mr. Brown Can Moo. This third one, which I'm loving, is called Christmas Past. The fourth one is called Love Spell. And then this pink and purple one is called Rose Garden. And I don't believe that she sells these as full skeins. You just kind of get like a mini sample pack in the Minis Club. And I don't know which is which. I mean, I could probably guess based on the fact that I've tried some of these yarns, but some of the, you get to try their different bases as well, which is nice, so that when Lydia does sell a line of her yarns, you know which base you like. And so this is a sample of the Ascot base, the Fashion Knot, the Perfection Knot, and that's it. So I've tried Ascot, and I believe that's these three, and then one must be Perfection and one must be Fashion, although I don't know which is which. And then I have a second set of minis, which are right here. Ooh, they look very similar to the first set, but the first set had more like Christmas colors, and this is more harvest colors. And so we have Ginger, perfect name for this, by the way, Pumpkin, the March Hare, I love it, Radish Blossom, and Purple Carrots, which does look like purple carrots, I think. And so this is on the Ascot base again, the Bachman and the Trinity knot. And I don't know what the Bachman and the Trinity knot consist of, but I assume it's these two because these three look like they're the brand of yarn I already know. And so those were the two minis. And then I have two skeins of yarn. And so I'm just going to say in the background, you might see these rainbow dots appearing like this one. And that is because in my window over here, I have a crystal heart that is on a solar powered device that makes the crystal heart spin in a circle. So while I'm recording this podcast, you might see that this kind of becomes a disco room, which I love. My mom got that for me so that I could have a party in my room at least at one point during the day. So as the sun moves, it will hit that crystal just right. And when it does that, the rainbows will start circulating in the room. Okay, and so, perfect, August. Okay, so this one, this skein of yarn is called, I'm going to mess this up, I say that every podcast. It's called the Daigo Temple, Japan, and it is on the ascot base, which is 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon, and it's 400 yards. And just because I messed up that spelling or that pronunciation so bad, there we go. Okay, and so this is beautiful, and it kind of has this slate blue color, and then it has these really pretty pinks and blacks. Focus. There we go. Really pretty. You can see blacks and oranges and some of the pinks and cream. And so what's nice is with this box of socks, I feel like that's what it's called, Yarn of the Month Club, is that Lydia always includes a little note that explains what the inspiration for this yarn was. So I'm going to hold up the skein of yarn while I read this to you so that you can understand what inspired this colorway. It says this month the O Socks Club, that's what it's called, the O Socks Club, takes you to beautiful Japan. Your yarn was inspired by the Daigo Temple. The large temple complex stands southeast of central Kyoto and includes an entire mountainside. The main temple grounds are located at the base of the mountain and are connected via a hiking trail to several more temple buildings around the summit. The temple was constructed in 1598. Enjoy and happy knitting, Lydia. Isn't that cool? So she lets you know what her inspiration was. Now, I don't know if she's ever been to Japan or to this temple, but I don't know. I would believe her, and I would say, yes, that is, these colors are there. And so this, I believe, was September, and this was my favorite of the 3 months because it was inspired by Ireland. And so this is the skein of yarn, and it's like this butter yellow. Focus. There we go. It's like this butter yellow and white, and it has some flecks of black, blue, purple. You can really see this big chunk. Hold on, let me get it for you, like right here, with the blues, the purples, and there's greens in there. And this month was inspired, okay, I'll just read the whole thing. It says, this month, our OSOC subscription takes you to the beautiful Dark Hedges of Ireland. The beautiful avenue of beech trees was planted by the Stuart family in the 18th century. It was intended as a compelling landscape feature to impress visitors as they approached the entrance to their Georgian mansion, Grace Hill House. You can't even see the colors the way I'm holding it. I like to put it in front of this light. 2 centuries later, the trees remain a magnificent sight and have become one of the most photographed natural phenomena in Northern Ireland. In fact, the iconic trees have been used as a filming location for HBO's epic series Game of Thrones, representing the King's Road. Your club skein this month was inspired by this beautiful place, Lydia. So yes, this was September. And this is called the Dark Hedges, and that is on the Bachman base, which is 100% BFL. And oh, I can't wait to make something with it. Smell all the yarn. Yay! So sadly, this club is over for me, but I have so much O-Loops yarn to play with that it's sad and it's not sad all at the same time. I can't wait to make something out of that. So I believe those are all my acquisitions. And they're old, so, you know, nothing in the last 7 days, because I think I mentioned I'm on a yarn diet. Okay, so this brings me to the end of my very short podcast, which I'm assuming that over the next month, most of my podcasts are going to be somewhat short because I'm going to be podcasting every week and there will only be so much time for knitting and creating. And so I'm hoping that I have more like 25 to 30 minute instead of hour-long podcasts. So I'm into the section now called announcements, and this is where I'm going to talk about who the winner of the Riley Rose Shawl is. So thank you for staying with me, and let's see. So I had a total of 8 comments, and I did random number generator, and I did comments 2 through 9 because there were 9 total, and I was the first one. So let's see. That was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh no, wait. Comment 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, yeah. So that was this is the proof. This camera. There we go. 6. Yay. Okay. And so 6 was Pug Love in April. And she asked, what prompted you to start knitting and who taught you? What are your favorite teas? So it's 2 questions in one. And what prompted me to start knitting was my mom. She taught me when I was about 10. I made the most heinous, gigantic swatch that was kind of like what is that? It's flat on, oh, it looks kind of like this. It's flat on top, skinnier at the top, widens at the bottom, and then is flat again. Because I kept dropping and gaining stitches, and I made it out of this really scratchy acrylic purple and not purple, pink and blue yarn on like size 10 metal Susan Bates needles. And the only reason I know that is because years later my mom actually sent me this really old duffel bag full of my old craft projects from when I was a kid, and that was in there, and it all came flooding back, and I was like, oh right, yeah, I did. I totally remember her teaching me to knit, and I put it down. I didn't pick up knitting again until I was about 24, so 14 years later, and that was when the knitting craze was coming back in like the early 2000s, 2004 is when I was 24, and so I then picked up the Yarn Girl's Guide to Simple Knits book, and I picked up some yarn and I just went to town, and I haven't looked back since. I've knit sweaters and scarves and hats and gloves and fingerless mitts, and I love it when people ask, like, if you're knitting in public or anything like that, people will ask you, oh, what do you like to knit? What else can you knit? And my answer is inevitably like anything, everything. I like to knit it all. I like to try it all. I don't have any one thing in particular that I can say I love to knit because I don't necessarily like to repeat the same thing. So a basic vanilla sock, I guess, is kind of good to have sitting on the side if you don't want to think too much. But I really like to try, now that I've gotten into socks this year, socks with patterns or the heel toe cuff, or I really want to learn to do toe up. There's a Susan B. Anderson video about that, and so I bought that. And then, anyway, I digress. And so my favorite teas are Trader Joe's Candy Cane tea. And there is my favorite caffeinated tea is a black tea by the Boulder Dashani Tea House, which I will link to in my show notes on my Ravelry group page. And it's a blueberry vanilla tea. It's called Blue Moon, and it smells like heaven, and it's so smooth for a black tea. And I don't put anything in my teas. I don't put sugar or almond milk or anything like that. So I really love this blue tea, and I buy it by the bag, and I have it shipped to me. Boulder is about half an hour to an hour away from me, depending on traffic, probably about an hour. And so sometimes I'll just have it shipped unless I'm heading to the Boulder area, but I probably go through 2 bags a year-ish, like a 12-ounce, 10-ounce bag. So those are my favorite teas. So thank you, Pug Love in April. and I will get in touch with Jennifer, and I will, oh, I know who you are, April. You just came up to me at the Knit Nosh event. I'm so glad you won. I will get in touch with Jen, and she will send that pattern over to you. So congratulations, and thank you for leaving a comment. And thank you to everybody who left a comment. I'm going to spend the next couple of weeks answering any questions that I get in that discussion board of what would you like to know. So if you're watching this and you have any questions about me and about knitting or anything like that, feel free to log on to the Ravelry group, the Knitting Type podcast, and leave your question on the what would you like to know discussion thread. So I'll answer them on the podcast, so that way I can just share with everybody. Okay, so moving on, I had mentioned at the beginning that I'm going to be hosting a Gilmore Girls knit along, and it's going to start next week. I'm a huge fangirl of the Gilmore Girls, and so yes, I'm a huge fan, and I'm going to be hosting this podcast throughout the month of November, and I'm going to be doing giveaways via Instagram and my podcast. And so I thought I would open up the Gilmore Girls knit along thread now so that we could start having some discussion on the thread about what we want to knit, what yarn we're going to use, why we're going to knit things, and anybody who chooses to leave a comment or join us in the discussion between today and between today and the 1st, because I'm going to release my next podcast on the 1st, which is the official beginning of the knit along. It will be entered to win this prize, which is what I just made this. It is a project bag, and it is a project bag inspired by Stars Hollow. So this is Gilmore Girls fabric. And this is about a medium-sized project bag. It has a dragonfly progress keeper or zipper pull, and it's just white fabric on the inside. And so if you are familiar with Gilmore Girls, you will recognize this Stars Hollow button. You will recognize, this is going to be hard, the gazebo. This is Luke's. I forget who that guy is, but that's a statue that's in town. This is the soda shop. This is Dosey's Market. This is the Dragonfly Inn. This is the church with the bells. This is Lorelai's and Rory's house. This is Weston's Bakery. This is the swan, and there's a whole episode about a character getting beaked by a swan. And this is the Stars Hollow sign that says established in 1779. And then if we turn it around, this is Stars Hollow High. This is Miss Patty's School of Dance. And I believe that's, oh, and then this I believe is Kim's Antiques. So this is official Gilmore Girls fabric. This is a dragonfly inspired progress keeper, and then you also get the Stars Hollow button with it. So if you are a Gilmore Girls fan like I am, then please join the Ravelry group, the Knitting Type podcast, and please come and onto the thread for the Gilmore Girls knit along and tell us what you're going to be knitting. I'm excited. I hope you will join me. And this is the first of several prizes that will be released on a weekly basis. Okay. Oh, and then I was going to say, this is a denim bottom. And I picked denim as the corresponding fabric because they just wear a lot of jeans and jean jackets. It's a casual town kind of family show. So I just thought denim was super cute as a coordinating fabric. So, so that's it. That wraps everything up. Please join the podcast group on Ravelry. Please join the Gilmore Girls Knit Along. And also the Project Bag Swap signups will be on November 1st. So my next podcast will be episode 12, and that will post on the 1st of November. And that will also be when the project bag swap opens and the Gilmore Girls knit-along starts. So thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. Bye! And so this is the octopus sock with all of its tentacles just hanging down and around. So here you can see I really just have about 2 inches left, maybe 3 inches before I start the toe decrease.